If you want to establish that two characters are siblings, you could always just do this.
Sister?
Hello, brother.
But while this is efficient, nobody really talks like this. It's awkward and kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. So you could spice it up.
I'm Greg. I'm Marianne's Greg. Your nephew?
I like the way Succession does it in the pilot.
Hi, Kendall Roy.
Yeah, hi.
I was sent by Roman to burn some sage.
Excuse me?
It's auspicious. I'm a business alchemist. It's a gift from your brother.
Will it set off the smoke alarm?
Not usually. Not usually? Well, that hasn't.
Hey.
This is more playful and fun, and the way the character is introduced tells us not just who they are, but something about the kind of person they are. This video is sponsored by Nebula. Watch an extended version by clicking the link in the description below. Here's one of my favorite opening lines in any movie.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
And it just so happens to be a piece of exposition. Some of the most iconic lines in movie history,
I am your father,
also happen to be exposition. We tend to think of exposition as a bad thing.
That spider can give superhuman strength and power like las arañas.
And I think that's because we usually only notice it when it's bad.
This is Katana. She's got my back. She can cut all you in half with one sword stroke, just like mowing the lawn.
But the reality is, exposition is just another tool in the writer's toolbox, and the quality of exposition can range from bad to good to great. There's a rare writer or filmmaker who just tries to avoid exposition entirely, but these kinds of stories are more the exception than the norm.
Explain to me what's going on.
Every story has to start somewhere, and there are almost always details that it just doesn't make sense to show. This is what we need great exposition for. Let me start with a scene from the recent pilot of The Three-Body Problem that I think illustrates some of the ways that exposition can be more noticeable and awkward.
I knew you'd be the last one here.
In this scene, we're meeting both of these characters for the first time, and we learn their working relationship because we're told that.
Here till the lights go out, boss.
We find out that this character is dedicated to his work because he basically says that.
I keep thinking if I just stare at the screen long enough, something will come to me.
And we find out that something has broken the paradigm of accepted physics theory because he tells us.
According to the experiments, all of our theories are wrong. All of them. All of the physics of the past 60 years is wrong.
Or should I say he's telling his boss. But the question here is why? Within the context of the story, it seems like she should obviously know this already. I think a scene like this feels pretty lifeless to me because it doesn't make sense that these characters would be telling each other these things. There are no dramatic stakes set up before they start talking. We haven't seen these two characters before. She just walks in and they start dumping exposition on each other. Now compare that to this scene from Blade Runner 2049, which also dumps a bunch of exposition about the world on us.
Mr. Morton, if taking you in is an option, I would much prefer that to the alternative.
But here, for me, it's much more effective and entertaining for a few reasons. First, some suspense and dramatic stakes are created before the conversation even begins. We don't know exactly what's going on in this scene, but the atmosphere is tense.
You police?
Are you Sapper Morton? Civic number NK68514.
I'm a farmer.
This character is obviously some kind of investigator, which motivates his questions. But finally, and I think most interestingly, we learn as much from what's implied here as we do from what is explicitly said.
What do you farm?
For example, this line outright tells us what this guy is farming while showing us the source of the protein.
This is a protein farm. Wallace designed.
But what's even more telling about the world is what's implied by the fact that garlic is a rare and unknown substance here.
Is that what I smell?
Grow that just for me. Garlic.
Garlic.
This garlic line is exposition, but it's also an example of showing rather than telling. So let's talk a little bit about show don't tell. This is common advice that's given to writers usually against overly relying on exposition. And it can be great advice. For example, if you want to establish that one character is happily married, you could construct this whole scene where he tells that to another character. But it's so much more efficient and more interesting to just show this. Or going back to Blade Runner, you could have one character tell another that water is a rare commodity in this world, or you could just show this. And I think if you can easily show something instead of having a character say it, it's generally good storytelling to do so. But I think show don't tell is also often misunderstood. Let me show you what I mean with an example from the pilot of Breaking Bad. Here, Walter Jr. is complaining at breakfast for not having hot water for a shower.
There was no hot water. Again.
Technically, this is a piece of exposition. We're being told rather than shown what happened. But I think this is actually great writing because it makes sense for him to be saying this, and the most important piece of information here, exposition-wise, is actually in the subtext rather than the text.
How about buy a new hot water heater? How's that idea? For the billionth time.
The audience is being told here through the dialogue that Walter Jr. wants his parents to buy a new hot water heater. But what's actually being shown through this dialogue is that the family has a faulty hot water heater and can't afford to replace it. This implies that things are probably financially tight for the family, which is a crucial part of the setup of the story in this episode. If you took show don't tell too literally, you might think that it would be better here to actually visually show Walter Jr. turning on the water and cold water coming out, or that it would be better to actually show the family's bank balance on screen. But I think that would actually be worse storytelling in this case. It would waste a lot of time on something that can naturalistically be revealed through a normal conversation that the characters are having. Really great lines of exposition like these serve multiple purposes. Here's another example that I love of some great subtextual exposition from the opening of Only Lovers Left Alive. In this scene, it needs to establish that the character is an immortal vampire, and it does so by slowly dropping fun little hints.
I need a .38 caliber bullet, but made of wood.
A wooden bullet? Seriously, man?
This scene also dramatizes some of the exposition by making it something that the character reveals accidentally.
I once saw Eddie Cochran play one of these, although he had the front pickup modified to a Gibson P90.
Wait, you actually saw Eddie Cochran play?
Yeah, on YouTube.
All right. Of course, man.
If the characters don't have a reason to reveal the information through the dialogue that you need them to reveal, you can always add in another character that gives them a reason to reveal this information.
She's not showing at all, is she? She's showing a little.
Carmen, this is my sister Marie.
Nice to meet you. Hi.
Sometimes I think this kind of thing can still feel a little contrived.
What do you do then? Oh, wait, hold on, don't tell me. Let me guess, you probably are.
I design self-assembling synthetic polymer nanofibers. I started a company that manufactures them for a variety of potential medical, energy, and materials applications.
If the viewer can sense that you just came up with this whole situation just to reveal a piece of exposition. But it's definitely a step up from just having characters tell each other things that they already know. Great writers get really good at doing this, though, at disguising exposition within naturalistic dialogue and scenarios.
What did you think of the case? I mean, it had a lot of interest for me. No real dead spots, you know what I mean? I tell you, we were lucky to get a murder case. I figured that's for an assault or burglary. Well, they can be the dullest.
If you want a masterclass in how to hide exposition naturalistically like this, watch 12 Angry Men. This entire film takes place in a single room where we watch a jury deliberate on a case. So basically everything we learn about the case or these characters has to be delivered as some sort of expositional dialogue.
I don't think so. He's much too bright for that.
Bright? He's a common, ignorant slob. He don't even speak good English.
He doesn't even speak good English.
For a more contemporary example of the same kind of thing, you could watch Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise, which is basically one big long conversation between a couple that just met.
Yeah, I'm just traveling around. I've been riding the trains for the past 2-3 weeks.
You were visiting friends or just on your own?
So again, everything we learn about their past or their lives has to be revealed through dialogue. Both of these movies work really well because the information is only revealed when it makes sense within the natural flow of the conversation.
Where were we looking? Hold on a second, now look. Did the old man say he ran to the door?
Ran, walked, what's the difference? He got on, did he? I mean, he got there, didn't he?
No, well, wait a second.
He said he ran, at least I think he did.
And there's also an artfulness to slowly revealing critical new pieces of information as the story progresses.
I saved up my money all spring to fly to Madrid and spend the summer with my girlfriend, who has been on this...
Your girlfriend?
My ex-girlfriend.
I think a big part of good storytelling is just having a sense for exactly what the audience needs to know and when they need to know that. In looking at a bunch of examples for this video, I noticed that exposition almost always felt better and less forced when it was revealed at the latest possible moment for the story. Okay, but what if you have a bunch of dense exposition to get through? It's easy to imply or for the audience to infer information when the world of the story is a lot like our own. But in something like a science fiction story, there are often a lot more details that need to be filled in for the story to make sense, and you have to get creative.
Who are you?
That's the first question.
First name will do.
Severance is a recent example of a show that I think did a really good job of dealing with having a lot of exposition. And it does this by dramatizing the reveal of the information itself.
Do you think we grew a full human, gave you consciousness?
I don't know.
Did your nails?
I don't know. I don't know you.
No, you're not livestock. Good Lord.
Instead of just treating the details of this world as something that the audience needs to learn so that they can get on with the story, they turn the information the audience needs to learn into something that one of the characters is desperately trying to figure out. This creates an element of mystery and suspense in the first episode, and the solution to that mystery and the resolution to the suspense comes in the form of the exposition that helps set up the rest of the story.
My name is Helly R. I'm making this video roughly 2 hours before it will be shown to me.
This works really well because it gives the delivery of the exposition towards the later half of the episode some actual dramatic stakes and helps us understand the actual impact this information has on the character. Exposition, I think, is always going to be more interesting to the audience when we understand why this information is important to the characters. This is also an example of using in-world media as an expositional device. Sometimes this kind of thing can feel really heavy-handed, but it doesn't have to.
Can you turn the TV to a news channel?
The opening of Arrival does this in a pretty interesting way. How many times have we seen the news broadcast introduction that's telling us aliens are visiting Earth? Arrival uses this method, but makes it a little more interesting by placing the news broadcasts at the periphery of our attention. The focus remains on the main character and her emotional experience while she's learning this information. Along the way, we pick up enough bits and pieces here and there
that if it is a kind of vessel, it may be unmanned.
To get the details of what's going on, but it never feels like the movie is just sitting us down and making us watch a fake news broadcast. In-world media like this is great, especially when it's not just the content of that media, but the style of that media that tells us something about this world.
Element Software is proud to introduce the first artificially intelligent operating system.
Waystar Royco is a family that spans 4 continents, 50 countries.
This video and the pilot of Succession explicitly helps fill in some of the details we need for the story, but the upbeat corporate styling and the fact that this is part of a theme park training program almost says more about the kind of company that Waystar Royco is than what's actually said in the video. If your exposition is really necessary, but you're worried it might be a little boring, you can make it more exciting by hooking the audience with the most dramatic part of the story first. For example, they could have started Breaking Bad by establishing that Walter White is a middle-aged, financially struggling family man and high school chemistry teacher, but why would we really care? All that information is more interesting to learn and has a slightly humorous, ironic quality when we get to see this first.
My name is Walter Hartwell White. I live at 308 Negra Arroyo Lane, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Breaking Bad employs this irony by using a very dramatic opening and then switching to setting up a very mundane character. The Sopranos does the opposite by using a very mundane setting to introduce a dramatic criminal character. Having a mob boss visit a therapist for the first time creates a pretext for Tony to introduce his life to the audience.
The situation came up. It involves my uncle. I can't go into details on this one.
That's fine.
but it also dramatizes the exposition he delivers here and creates a layer of dramatic irony because he can't reveal too much to Dr. Melfi.
So you had coffee?
Right.
So you can do as little exposition as late as possible. You can try to disguise it. You can try to make it more dramatic and interesting. Sometimes the riskiest but most entertaining option is to just embrace it.
This chick, Marla Singer, did not have testicular cancer. She was a liar.
This is the approach used at the beginning of Goodfellas.
Wise guys would pull up and Tootie would toss me their keys and let me park their Cadillacs.
It's kind of what I personally just call storyteller mode.
Rolling over the sands, you can see spice in the air.
Voiceover tends to get a bad rap, but voiceover can be great, especially when the way the voiceover is performed tells us as much or more than what exactly is being said. In the opening of Goodfellas, we're filled in on the details of the workings of the mob and how someone gets involved in that world, but it's the way Henry Hill tells this story.
To me, being a gangster was better than being president of the United States.
With such a sense of reverence and adoration that tells us a lot about who he is as a character, why he was drawn into this world, and the allure that it held for him. Other great examples of the storyteller mode are movies like Fight Club,
Her lie reflected my lie,
or The Grand Budapest Hotel.
He was crying. You see, I never speak of Agatha because even at the thought of her name, I'm unable to control my emotions.
Having a character tell a story directly to another character or the audience can be beautiful and dramatic as long as the character themselves is a good storyteller. What makes for good exposition in this storytelling mode is honestly as complicated as what makes for good storytelling. It's a topic that's way too big for a single video. You can try to minimize exposition or cut it out, but I think it's worthwhile to learn to do it well because there's nothing wrong with it. And a lot of the media we consume, from documentaries to a video essay like this, are largely expositional. Every time I write a video, I'm technically trying to write good exposition. I'm trying to show at the same time that I tell. I'm trying to dramatize the information and allow you to infer things on your own. And I'm trying to communicate not just with what I say, but in how I say it. One of the things in making these videos on YouTube that sometimes forces me to tell rather than show is the fact that if I show you too much, I might get a copyright claim. And that's something I fortunately don't have to worry about when I upload a video to Nebula. If you want to see an extended plus version of this video with extra and extended examples, you can watch that right now on Nebula by clicking the link in the description below. Nebula is an independent streaming service that's created by myself and a bunch of other great creators, and it supports our YouTube work while giving us the chance to create content that we wouldn't normally be able to make for YouTube. If you sign up for Nebula, you'll get all my normal videos without any ads or sponsorships. You'll get extended versions of some videos. You'll get to see all of them early before anyone else. And you'll even get to see some bonus videos that exist only on Nebula, like the 45-minute essay I made about the ethics of depicting suffering in cinema just a few months ago. You don't just get stuff from me though. There's a whole ever-expanding catalog of exclusive content and originals. If you want more film analysis, you can watch Broy Deschanel's excellent Nebula original Taboo on Screen, and there's a bunch of other great new stuff that's coming soon. Best of all, your subscription directly supports my work, helps make these videos possible, and supports the work of all the creators on Nebula. You can sign up using my link by going to nebula.tv/ThomasFlight, where you'll get 40% off the annual plan. With this discount, Nebula only costs $2.50 a month. Special thank you to all those who have already used my link to sign up and support my channel. Sign up today by clicking the link in the description, on the screen, or by going to nebula.tv/ThomasFlight.